Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who is constantly brainstorming new ways to engage fans, from augmented reality experiences to interactive halftime shows, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan, and welcome to episode 368 of Sports Geek. This week, I catch up with Chris Schlosser. He is the Senior Vice President of Emerging Ventures at Major League Soccer, and really do appreciate him for taking the time. Don't forget, you can listen to Sports Geek anytime at Sports Geek HQ and on all podcast platforms. And don't forget to check out our throwback episodes, where each week I dive back into the archive and share some of the nuggets and gems that are shared by the Sports Geek guests. As always, you can always contact me via email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com, or reach out on socials at Sean Callanan and at SportsGeek. Remember, if you're wondering when is the best time to get in touch and get my assistance, the answer is now. Reach out, love to chat, always happy and welcome working with Sports Geek podcast listeners. Let's get into my chat with Chris Schlosser from Major League Soccer. Very happy to welcome Chris Schlosser, and again, I hope I got that name right, Senior VP Emerging Ventures for the Major League Soccer, known as MLS. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Sean, thanks for having me. It's fun to be here as we kick off our 29th season.
Well, exactly. That was what I was going to open with. Wake up this morning, checking the results into Miami, repping the shirt today. Got the win in season 29, and you've been at the MLS for a long while. But I wanted to ask, how did you get your start in the world of sports business?
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. This is the start of my 16th year here at the league. You know, I was getting my MBA at Columbia here in New York City, and was supposed to go work for a private equity firm in finance and go down that road. But I'd played soccer my whole life. I'd loved the sport. It was a passion of mine. And on a whim, I went and sat in the U.S. soccer president's office at the time, who also happened to be a undergrad economics professor at Columbia, a guy by the name of Sunil Gulati. And we were talking, and I pitched him an idea to basically create an ad network for the sport of soccer, rolling up the ad inventory for all the soccer sites in the United States at the time. This is 2007, I guess it was when we spoke. He said, that's an interesting idea. He connected me to the commissioner. That led to a fun consulting project while I was getting my MBA, where I was making some cash and writing a business plan, and then turned in the business plan, said, great, went off, thought I was going to start in my private equity job. And commissioner called me and said, hey, that business plan you wrote, do you want to come actually start it? And so I said, sure. That sounds like a lot more fun than working in finance, and joined the league officially in the summer of 2008 as the first digital employee of the league. And that was the starting point. We're off to the races from there.
I mean, that is the early days of that sports digital, explosion and starting of it. I mean, Jeremy McPeak talks about getting a fax from the NBA head office saying we're setting up websites. It was in that sort of era, 2008 to 2010. What was it like, again, being a first digital employee? There's a long list and there's all these things you might want to do. What were some of those tasks and project you tackled in those first couple of years?
So the first thing we did was truly set up that ad network. We went out and we brokered deals where we were selling the ads on PremierLeague.com and Fox Sports and, you name it, a whole bunch of Goal.com, a whole bunch of kind of the old school soccer sites. And we were selling the U.S. inventory. And so we set up all the tech. We figured it out. We were out there, selling deals. And I remember walking the conference floor at the NSCA, the coaches convention, literally selling, $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 deals just to start driving revenue for the business. But the brilliant thing about that was it gave us significant impressions and significant revenue, bigger than what the just MLS site on its own could justify. And so that gave us a revenue stream that we could then go use to invest in the MLS's own digital assets. And so what we started a slow process where previously we'd outsourced all the web, all of that to BAMTech and to others. And we slowly, over a period of time, started bringing everything back into something that we controlled. We built a content team for the first time. We launched social channels. We built the first ever iPhone app for the league, and so on and so forth. And we just kind of were every year knocking down new deliverables and new opportunities for the league over the course of 2008 to 2012 or 13. It was a frantic time, constantly launching and building new things. But it really set the stage for the league to have all new ways to reach out and engage our fans, which is critically important, and also build a real business in the digital space, which we'd never really had before.
I think the thing that's interesting about the origin story, and everyone's digital origin story is different. A lot of teams and leagues have gone the Kevin Costner route. If you build it, they will come, and then hopefully the revenue sort of follows. But you actually led with that revenue piece, and we're in sales mode. And then obviously digital is seen as a revenue stream. How important was that for the mindset for you to be able to say, hey, we want to keep forging forward, because you had some of those wins, and had a revenue focus from like day one?
Well, the important thing to remember is we had done that and I say the league had done that broadly in the sport of soccer starting in about 2002 when they launched this thing called Soccer United Marketing. And they went out and they got the rights to the broadcast of the 2002 World Cup. And actually the league was the ones brokering a lot of the deals to put the 2002 World Cup on ESPN. It's amazing the world that we were living in 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And then they parlayed that, and they were representing things like the Mexican national team and FC Barcelona and all of these other soccer properties. The league was selling all of their sponsorships. And so that concept existed in kind of the physical world. And so what I had done was basically taken that concept from the physical world to the digital world. And yeah, for a startup league, being able to have revenue to justify investment is critically important. Even if you end up having to invest more than you're bringing in on the revenue side in some of the early days, still having significant revenue streams makes those conversations a lot easier than if you're just having to purely spend on the tech or content side.
And then as your role evolved from GM to VP to senior VP of MLS Digital, what were some of the key wins along the way in building out that team and really serving that growing MLS fan base?
Yeah, I think there were a couple principles that really guided us well along the way. One, we always wanted to create really phenomenal content for the fans on whatever platform or service was kind of in vogue at that point in time. But we really always invested in great content because we just thought there wasn't enough great coverage of the league, and we thought we could fill that void. And I think that was very true along the way. So that was always a key focus. And, we had brilliant, really creative folks creating that content, all along. Second was, we always felt like our fans were digitally native from the very start. They weren't used to following soccer on traditional television. They were younger. They were more in tune with the latest developments in tech. And so we had to deliver great products for them, that they expected. And so we had to be kind of on the cutting edge of technology. And then the third was always great because we were younger. We didn't have the hindrances of some of the more established leagues in terms of their rights structures or other agreements. So we were able to do phenomenal deals with, Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and, end in the early days where we were bringing content to these platforms and getting paid for it. In new and interesting ways. And that was always really fun to be out there, doing the business development and cutting those deals. And, frankly, meeting some incredible people who were at all of those companies and who now have, continued to make big impacts on the sports industry over the last decade or so.
I mean, that piece around the partnership with all the different platforms, the social platforms, especially as they were developing video products and looking for content. And you're right, they were going to some of the bigger leagues that had all locked up broadcast deals. That nimbleness and agility that you had helped you take advantage when they sort of pulled back the velvet rope and said, we're testing video on this platform. Hey, MLS, have you got video? And you're able to say yes.
Exactly. And we can do a highlight right deal, and we can do a content deal or an output deal, and we can create something new. One of my favorite stories from the early days, we went and we did a deal with Google for a brand new channel on YouTube that we called Kick TV that Google funded largely. And they really invested in it, and it covered the global sport of soccer. But the fun thing for us was, and this just shows you what a different culture it was back then, the league's dress code at that time was suit and tie. So everybody was coming in here in suit and tie. And there was this massive debate as we were building up this big YouTube team in partnership with YouTube about why the YouTube guys didn't have to wear a suit and tie, but everybody else in the office had to wear a suit and tie. And so ultimately, the league relaxed its dress code, but it was only because we'd done this investment deal with YouTube and brought in these content creators who there was no chance, they were ever going to be wearing a suit and tie. But that was just the kind of the world that the league was in at that point in time. Obviously, it's very different now. But one of the funny anecdotes that just happened along the way.
And your role evolved to be more in that media space because all of these platforms, some have become streamers, new streamers entering the market. Do you think because you're on always pushing that bleeding edge, always doing those different media deals, did that really set both yourself up personally to have that knowledge, but then also the league to go, we know what the different variations different streamers are looking for to what has evolved to what new media deals, and I guess culminated in the deal that you did with Apple?
Yeah, if you think about it, we had built a streaming service that we ran called MLS Live, that was fully owned and controlled by the league, and that was really a good test case for us in very early subscription products and what that might look like. We then did a deal as one of the key launch partners of ESPN Plus, where we took MLS Live and distributed it via ESPN Plus. And we're kind of, very early at the forefront with Disney and ESPN on their streaming strategy. And then ultimately that's led us to this unbelievable global media partnership with Apple, where every one of our matches is available in one spot around the world. And, we think that's the future of sports. And I think, that's certainly, it certainly seems that the world is trending in that direction and trending that way quickly.
I mean, we're recording this, and I think it was only 3 days ago. Apple have now launched, Apple Sports, their own, scoreboard, and trying to keep, really connecting with global sports fans. That only has all upside for you from an MLS point of view, doesn't it?
Yeah, there were a couple things that were really critical for us as we thought about the move to an Apple type partnership. One, it gave us full control of our schedule in ways that we never had it before. Because if you're in a linear world, you're chasing a linear television schedule. And so it allowed us to put all of our games on Saturday night, which is the best time for the fans. It makes it the best experience in the stadiums. It makes it the best for them to go attend. And we were able to stack up all our games on Saturday nights. And so that was unbelievably different. Second, we were able to take control of all of the production and really create standards and quality improvements across the board. Previously, there'd been a hodgepodge of different companies producing MLS matches, and we were able to take, just huge step forward in terms of really the graphics and the 1080p HD video and the way we're integrating stats into the broadcast and the talent and you name it. And so that was a second big leap. And then look, if you look at 2022, I think the average fan had to have something like 11 different channels or services if they wanted to watch every MLS match. And that gets really complicated and hard. And now, fans have they buy one pass and they get access to every single match. And that's a pretty good value proposition we think for a lot of our fans.
So a lot of the stuff we're talking about at the minute has been that streaming space and that digital space. but part of what you do as a league and Rumba Digital is serve the fan and help the fan experience in stadium. And lucky enough to be in a few MLS games, and it's unique. Fan experience, the way the crowd gets involved. How have you helped, improve that fan experience from a digital point of view across the league?
Yeah, look, I think if you think about the in-stadium experience, tech can help make that a smoother, easier path, right? Your phone is your ticket. It gets you easily into the venue. It can be your payment device so that you can just tap and go, or not. In some of the newest concession stands, you don't even have to tap. You just walk in and it recognizes your face and you walk right out with whatever you want. But we think that that's the kind of thing where the phone is really the core of those experiences. What we've seen, and I'm sure you have over the years, a million pitches for, hey, fans really want to be on their phone in the stadium, and they're going to look through the phone and get alternate camera angles, or they're going to be doing X, Y, Z. And at least in the sport of soccer, the beautiful thing about the game is it never stops. It's always moving. The fans are jumping up and down. They're singing songs. They're lighting off flares. They're doing crazy stuff. And we fundamentally don't think we really want fans staring at their phone during live action. So the phone is a tool. It can be really helpful. And I think it is in making it a better, more modern game day experience. But we also really think that if you walk into one of our venues, that place is electric. It's so much fun. You want to be watching the amazing players on the field, but you also want to be watching what the supporters are doing, and you want to be caught up in that atmosphere. And so, even as a tech guy, there's a nice balance between how much tech do we really want here and how much do we want to let the analog, just the unbelievable experience, really shine.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mark Cuban might have said it back in 2009 or 2010 that he wants people to have their phone in their pocket because the experience is there. So we have gone through that cycle of people trying to pitch that, hey, you're going to live through your phone and you need to pull it out in the stadium. But it just needs to be a utility for that fan, whether it's as they're coming into the stadium, like you said, have a ticket. If you need to find something, you can use it. But you're right. Once you're in a game, like I'm the same. I won't be pulling my phone out. Like, yes, you'll get the Instagram shot, but you'll put it away. But you really just want to be part of the experience.
Yeah, and if you think just about your general life, what are some of the best uses of technology in your life? It's the Starbucks app that allows you to get your coffee fix in the morning and pre-order it and just go pick it up, so it makes your life quicker and easier. Or it's your airline app where you now have your ticket right in your pocket. You don't have to deal with going to a desk and printing out a boarding pass or finding a printer. It gets you into the right security line. It gets you your upgrade. It does all the things, and you just flow through the airport. I think in sports, it's very similar. The phone should be making the experience better, not be the experience itself.
And you did mention, people pitching you different tools and products and technologies. That's part of being in the role that you're in and the role you have been in. What kind of decision matrix or filter do you try to put over something that comes in to go, is this worth my time? Should I look at this further? Does this solve my problem? Like, your inbox there's probably a folder of things I might look at later. How do you assess a new piece of sports tech, whether it's, fan facing, whether it's digital improvement, any of those kind of things?
Yeah. So I'd say a couple things. Just personally, I try to bring a healthy level of curiosity into every conversation, because I'm always looking and trying to figure out, like, what is the hook for this particular company or idea. I find spending time around founders to be just so energizing. These guys are killing themselves. They're hustling. They're doing unbelievable things to build their businesses. And so I think, I try to humanize every one of those conversations and say, what is it about this particular company that's interesting? What do they see as the market opportunity? And try to see the world a little bit through their eyes, just as a starting point. And it's fun to be able to understand kind of what their vision is and what are they trying to achieve. Now, certainly, you also build up a pretty good filter in terms of, hey, we've seen 7 versions of this thing. it just isn't the right subject for us. And so there's some things you look at and you say, look, that's just not going to fly. What we've tried to do over the last 14 months or so is put in place a more specific framework to allow us just to organize the hundreds, if not thousands, of inbound or outbound conversations that we have, and to really align the work we're doing, looking at great young new tech startups with the needs of the broader company and enterprise, so that the work we're doing is in service of the broader world we're in, not just as a standalone tech for tech sake or startup for startup sake. And so we've really identified 3 areas, and they're broad, that we think technology can have a really meaningful impact. The first is on-field player development, which is a massive area inclusive of health and wellness. And there's so much happening in that space. So that's one area, and we can go in more depth there. Second is fan engagement. Right? We've already talked about it a little bit, but we do believe that there are things that technology can bring that can make the fan experience better, whether that's in stadium, at home, out and about. There are ways that we can use technology to better engage the fan base. And then third, because we control the media production, we believe that over the next several years, there are going to be real leaps in the technology you use to produce live matches. And we're really excited about some of the use cases there. And so we're spending some time just thinking about what technology might do to that production workflow, and how we can use that to either make things more efficient or create newer, cooler experiences, or just transit this world we're in to the next generation that's coming here quickly.
And is that pretty much your current role, that Senior VP Emerging Ventures, taking that step back away from the day-to-day to be able to look at that 30,000-foot view around those pillars, and that effectively was the genesis of the Innovation Lab?
Yeah, so the Emerging Ventures group, I think of it really as we spend about 50% of our time doing kind of traditional venture cap, and 50% of our time doing more traditional corp dev. Venture cap is exactly what it sounds, and we'll talk more about that. The corp dev side, the broader group is also working on creating net new assets for the league, and looking at, are there programs that we can build either and then run them ourselves, spin them off as separate companies, work with partners on a joint venture standpoint to go create net new assets or net new revenue streams for the league. And those are big, fun, exciting projects that may have a tech component or may not. And ultimately, the long-term goal for Emerging Ventures is we should be unlocking new revenue streams and new value creation for the MLS enterprise outside of kind of your traditional sports revenue streams of media, ticket sales, sponsorship. And we think we can be additive to the whole pie. And so that's what that's what we wake up every day thinking about.
And the thing is, from an MLS point of view, you've got a really large canvas to apply some of that technology there. It's not just the league. The league has expanded with more teams and more markets. So you've got good penetration across the North American landscape, but you've also got, vertically with NMLX Next Pro and MLS Next, you've got this participation base. And like you said, that player development and that technology space for players, but then also participation does give you a really broad landscape to go, where could this tech fit, and how can it help the MLS and help soccer and football overall?
That's been the most unbelievable development over the last 4 years, right? If we went into COVID as a very high performing first division league, and that was really the focus. Now, 4 years later, we're still an unbelievably quickly growing first division league, but we've now spun up a second division league that is also growing very quickly and could expand to many more markets over time. And then we have a youth platform that's one of the largest youth platforms anywhere in the world, 160 clubs, 12,000 players, 10,000 matches. I think they basically play a Premier League season every single weekend all year long. I mean, the scale is just insane to think about. And so that does give us a really fun way to test new technologies, to play with things, to see if they work, because as I imagine you could see, technology often isn't ready for the first team. It has to be operating at such a high level of quality and robustness to work at a first team level. But often emerging technology is really meant for these other marketplaces. And like I saw a really unbelievable young company today out of the Nordic region that is really focused on the youth space. And so more and more we're seeing these tech startups really zoning in on that youth space, and it's fun to be able to engage on that level as well.
I mean, it is great advice for startups. I do get a lot coming to me, how do I break into the American leagues? And it's like, well, you've got to get some wins in other markets, in other leagues, and lower in that sports pyramid is crying out for services and products to fill. And if you can work at that scale, iron out those kinks and those bugs, then like you said, you can level up into the big leagues.
And in some ways the market is bigger there, right? Because there's just so many more youth clubs than there are professional teams that your market size could be bigger, even if your individual purchase price might be lower. But that's also part of what you mentioned it earlier. That's part of what drove us to build the Innovation Lab. Yes, the league has been on the forefront. Yes, we've done all this cool tech stuff for a long time, but amazingly, we never had any sort of formal innovation program that gave us any sort of structured way to work and help support great startups in the space. And so that was a lot of the impetus for us for building the Innovation Lab, which is an annual program that runs from about September 1st through July of every year. We're in the middle of the first cohort now. And through that program, we did a global search. We looked at 500 companies and we came up with a cohort of 6 great companies this year. Those companies then are given the ability to test live in our youth competitions and really put their products to the test and use that to evolve. And like we had teams of engineers sitting there alongside our fields, real time coding as the products were being used. So there's that product development cycle, which is awesome. We speed them to market because we allow them really easy access to talk to all of our clubs in one setting. So they don't have to go have 30 individual conversations. They can have one conversation via us to get everybody. And then we provide a lot of coaching and mentorship throughout the course of the program. And then ultimately at the end of the year, we're going to pick the highest performing members of the class, and they're going to have a chance to pitch the MLS board, which is 30 billionaire owners, unbelievable group of successful individuals. And we'll have an option at the end of the year to actually invest in some of these companies if they prove to be worthy of that, which is really exciting. The two trends there I've seen are, companies that are big in other sports in the United States using the program to transition into the sport of soccer, or as you mentioned, companies from overseas who are trying to think about how to break into the U.S. market. And this is a phenomenal program to allow them access to the U.S. market in a pretty capital light way.
Yeah, I mean, and definitely, I mean that first one of being able to adapt and understand the world of football. Soccer is its own, but understand the global reach of it and how their tech, which might be working in an NFL setting or a basketball setting, how it can be applied. Because once you unlock that piece, there's clubs in Europe, there's participants across the UK, like that can really be unlocked. So it's an exciting opportunity. What that process of putting up your hand and saying come to us, was that 500? A lot of filtering through. Is that a process that you hope to refine year on year to be able to get the right people from a founder point of view and get the right tech involved in the program?
Yeah, so I think it will always be some combination of just pure inbound, and we, as you mentioned, we get a lot of inbound. But we'll formalize that, and you'll be able to go to MLSsoccer.com and submit an application, which will be great and give us a good look. And then some outbound where there'll be certain trends or areas that we're really interested in, and we'll go very prescriptively and try to find companies that are active in that space to also bring into the program. And so it'll always be some combination of both inbound and outbound to fill the program.
And then from your point of view, did you go and, because it's a concept that a few other sports have tried. I know here Tennis Australia has run a program the last couple of years alongside the Australian Open under the same premise of bringing in tech and then letting them test and play around a big event like the Australian Open. Did you do a bit of a research trip or tap other colleagues in different leagues and different markets to say, how did you tackle it?
We obviously are aware that there's a couple of these other programs out there, both in the sport of soccer or elsewhere, but it really wasn't that process for us. More, it was about how do we best structure this so that it can be really useful to the enterprise. We'd had some previous experience where we tried to do some pilots and really struggled to get them off the ground. And so having a team that's fully dedicated to this, that wakes up every day thinking about it, has been really useful. And then the advent of those lower leagues where we can very easily deploy pilots and tests has been game changing. And so it allowed us just to structure this in an entirely new way that really works for us as an enterprise. And what works for us at MLS may not work for other leagues around the world, given we're this single entity structure that's just a different world. But certainly it seems that at least out of the gate the Innovation Lab has been a great success, and we're really excited about it.
I completely agree, especially that piece about like pilot programs. I've seen that in a lot of different sports where people go, oh, it's some new tech and we'll run it, but then they don't have either a dedicated resource internally to appropriately service and figure out how to use the tool, and then it sort of gets left with the startup. But having one dedicated objective to go, yes, we want to see this succeed and put some resources behind it, can actually, give you that foundation for success.
Yeah, and just aligning it with the needs of the organization. Again, just doing a pilot to do a pilot, you can do that all day long, but that's not really going to be all that useful. If you can be prescriptive and say, this is something that we care about, let's go see if this company or this solution can meet the needs that we have. We're going to learn something. We might learn that the tech isn't ready yet, or we might learn that this particular company isn't the right company, but the concept is really interesting. Or we might tweak the concept, or the home run is great. This is we've gone through the test. This is ready to go. Let's deploy this into our enterprise. And this process just gives us a much better way of doing that. And we're really working collaboratively with the companies to develop the products, but also help them grow. And we really want to see each of these companies be successful. We want to see them meeting all their goals. And we think we can also really help them accelerate their own businesses.
And is another benefit working with startups is they are, like you were in the streaming and media deals, they're on the bleeding edge of some of these new tech, whether it be AI, mixed reality, wearables, player health, getting their learnings from how they're leveraging the tools, how they're staying in front of the changes that could potentially flow back into the MLS business, whether it be digital or other parts of the business?
For sure. And again, the spirit of innovation lives really throughout the MLS enterprise from the commissioner on down. I think everyone is enamored with new tech, is paying attention to it. And this gives us the ability to really speak concretely about, let's take AI. Here are some real world AI use cases that we are trying, and we'll see if they work or not, or if they're ready for prime time. But, we are actively going to be deploying them, not just talking about it. And I think that's been really fruitful for us as a company as well, to be able to, not just talk the talk, but really understand what's possible today.
Yeah. One thing I did want to touch on before wrapping up, season 29, we've seen in the NFL, it's had the Taylor Swift bump, which has, blown a bunch of metrics off the board. Last year you had Lionel Messi join the league. He must have created some kind of bump and, engage across all platforms, engagement, subscribers, media attention. How have you sort of graded like the impact he's had on the league just in the short time?
So I'd say two things. One, last year was a record year for MLS across all kind of measurable metrics. but largely that was true before he arrived, given he arrived pretty late in our year. Just the sport is growing like a weed here in North America. And so it's really exciting times to be in and around the sport of soccer. We knew obviously that Messi was going to be good. He's such a phenomenal, athlete, character. But frankly, it's been way better than we could have ever even anticipated, just in terms of the global following he brings and the impact on social media views and metrics and Apple viewership and all those things. I mean, I think we're all looking at it going, wow, this is unbelievable. But also, we have unbelievable stories around the league, and it's fun to now have people maybe come into the league via a Messi lens, but go, oh my God, that atmosphere in St. Louis is unbelievable. Yeah. Or look at that stadium in Austin. That the green glow is insane. We've never seen anything like that. What is going on, in these MLS markets? And so it really is a great introduction point. And we've just seen that, benefit go all around the league as we kick off this new season.
I mean, it is the same, it has been a model tried and true for the MLS, players with big, large international following, people like David Beckham way back when for the Galaxy. It has had that effect every time. But yeah, I mean, I was in the States last year when he was playing his first games, and the media coverage, the social media coverage, the international attention on the league, and you look at some of the ridiculous revenue numbers and valuation numbers for Inter Miami just in the last 12 months has been phenomenal. And you're right, but the opportunity for you guys to then tell those other stories of his teammates, who he's playing against, learning the teams that he's playing against, turning up to a game and then following up and going to other games, that's the real long-term benefit for you overall.
Yeah, and look, I think we have a very ambitious group of owners who are really smart business people. They see the growth metrics, they see the trends, they know what's coming in the World Cup, and I think we're just at the tip of the spear. I think you're going to see, there's probably no other individual quite like Messi, but I think you're going to see continued, impact players come to American cities to play this beautiful game, and I think you're going to continue to see young Americans develop through our academy programs and come make meaningful impact, in and around the league. And so I think we're in this really unique and interesting place where you have these unbelievable stadiums, you have this young fan base, and now we have the eyes of the world more and more on us, and they can watch all our games on Apple. That's a pretty potent combination as we think about, the next 3 or 4 years through the World Cup and all the exciting times to come. So, yes, do I love watching Messi? Absolutely. He did some things last night, like chipping the guy who was on the ground. I was like, how does this guy do this? But I think it's just a microcosm of, this is a really exciting, fun league. You never really know exactly what's going to happen. We don't have 1 or 2 teams that win every year. Everybody, it's opening day. Everybody thinks their team might just have a shot. And I think that's really unique in global football and really fun. And, we'll be talking, come the fall about who's going to make the playoffs and who's going to get through the gauntlet of the playoffs to be the champion. And, sitting here, I have my ideas, but truthfully, I don't know that anybody has any idea what's really going to happen. And that's the fun of MLS.
Yeah. And it does give you that broader appeal in that pop culture sense when, you see, Will Smith dapping up Lionel Messi at halftime. And again, that's another angle, whether they're coming in via, Will Smith's Instagram or something that becomes, oh, hang on, I've got to check out this sport. It's in my feed for a reason. So, whether it is Messi or all the other stars that are in the MLS, it definitely helps grow the sport.
Yeah, and it's Will Ferrell releasing insane social media posts to introduce the LAFC jersey, or Matthew McConaughey acting as the Ministry of Culture, for Austin FC and banging the drum at midfield and drinking beers with the supporters. It is spilling over in pop culture, and I think we can embrace that. I think sometimes the soccer world can be a little bit staid and boring. And I think, we can be the noisy upstart that's having a lot of fun and growing like crazy. And I think, I'd embrace that and think that's a lot of fun.
Definitely. I mean, I spoke to Anthony at Alpine F1 and he was talking about the celebrity investment in F1 and, there's a lot of NBA, NFL stars that are investing in their local MLS teams, and again, gives that crossover of fans. They love the experience. Travis Kelce, part owner of Kansas City Current, and those kind of things. It does give lots of options.
Yeah, and it's more and more relevant to the young consumer in the United States, and that's exactly where we want to be. And so I think the best days of this league are ahead. Having been here 16 years, it's amazing how different the league is today to 2008 when I joined. But I think, frankly, it's going to change even more over the next 5 years than it has over the last 16. And I think you're going to be sitting here in 2027 or 2028 going, oh my God, this thing is relevant on a global scale that we just couldn't even imagine.
Definitely. I think the last game I went to was actually a New York Red Bulls game with Aussie Timmy Cahill playing. And so, like I said, lucky enough to be at a bunch of MLS games. I look forward to going to some more. I want to get to the closing five. Chris, do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
Ooh, probably a New York Mets game. My family were big baseball fans growing up, so I think in second or third grade we went to a New York Mets game at Shea Stadium, and that was really fun.
And you would have been to a lot of sports events in your time, and as much as technology has evolved, the food offerings at sports events have definitely evolved. Do you have a favourite food or a go-to food at a sports event?
Chicken fingers, the classic. I think you still, when you go to a stadium, you don't want the fancy food. You want the basics, and chicken fingers are my guilty pleasure.
That's fine. What's the first app you open in the morning?
Probably my email most days, unfortunately. Seeing what's come in overnight, as we really are in a global world, and so stuff is always there from overseas. And then probably Instagram.
No problem. Is there someone that the podcast listeners should give a follow that you've either follow? It might be an author, it might be someone that you follow on social media, and why they should give them a follow?
I really have been following this guy by the name of Adam Grant, who I think, just if you take a step back and you think about executives today and the demands on executive time, I think, more and more folks are focusing on health, wellness, fitness. And I think that's really important. The sports industry is such a go industry, late nights, lots of weekends, lots of, beer and chicken fingers, as we talked about. So I think this, general trend towards more health and wellness is really, really critically important. And I think, it's fun to think about the crossover between kind of executive fitness and this high athletic world that we all work in and love. And I'm just seeing more and more, when I'm out and about with other executives, that seems to be a really frequent topic of conversation now. And so Adam Grant, I think, often has words of wisdom that can be helpful there.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, maybe it was the reset that we got in COVID, but like getting that life balance right, being able to, rest and look after yourself and, embrace the grind and embrace the hustle, but also realize that you need to reset, you need to switch off occasionally, you need to look after yourself because eventually you're going to fall over if you just, no sleep and hustling all the time.
Yeah, look, the soccer season never, ever ends, which is part of the beauty of it. It's the fun of it. But, at least for me, I have to carve out time every morning to do something athletic for myself. And having that hour in the morning makes the rest of the day just go so much better.
And lastly, and you can answer this both personally, but also with your MLS hat on, what social media platform is your MVP?
Well, I think personally, I spend the most time on Instagram. I think that's the one that resonates most with me. I would say, just fascinated by the creativity that exists a lot on TikTok today, but also in YouTube and others, in just this next generation of content creators and the content that they come up with amazes me. The way they edit videos, the way they interlace music and video together. I think it's really fun. It's something I think is challenging to do well, and those who do it well really stand out in my mind.
Well, I really do appreciate you taking the time. If people want to find out more about won the MLS, or more importantly, the MLS Innovation Lab, where should they go to check it out?
MLSsoccer.com has all the info for you, or you can follow me at Chris Schlosser on most platforms, and I'm usually posting about it as well.
Well, thank you very much. All the best for season 29 of MLS. Hope it is another season where all your KPIs are smashed, and all the best for the cohort in the Innovation Lab.
Fantastic. Thanks for the time. Look forward to talking again soon.
Looking to help your digital or sponsorship team? Book in for a Pick My Brain session with Sean Callanan to help your team level up. Book now at sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain.
Thanks again to Chris Schlosser on X. You can follow him, Chris Schlosser, SCHLOSSER is how you spell his name, and also on LinkedIn. We will put links in the show notes. You can go to sportsgeekhq.com/368 to connect with Chris and learn more about the show. One edit from me, in the back end of that conversation, I mentioned investors in the MLS, and I mentioned Travis Kelce as an investor of KC Current, which is actually in the National Women's Soccer League and not in the MLS. So my apologies there. Obviously have Kelce on the brain working with the NFL. Some of the celeb investors in MLS include NBA stars James Harden, Giannis Antetokounmpo, TV star Reese Witherspoon, NFL star Derrick Henry. Patrick Mahomes actually is invested in, got a stake in Sporting KC. So the question was right. I just did not fact check myself while doing that. Before I wrap this up, just want to give a bit of a travel update. I will be in Detroit for the NFL draft. So if you're going to be in that part of the world around the NFL draft, or planning to attend, even in a work capacity or just going there for fun, please reach out. It was really great to catch up with Drew Bentley from DC United at last year's draft, quite unexpectedly. So who will it be this year? This episode's coming out next week will be Sport Next, Sport NXT. So again, if you're at Sport Next, come up and say hello. I'm really looking forward to the panel I'm going to do. It should be fun. Hopefully, if all goes well technically, you should be able to listen to that on the podcast feed. If you haven't grabbed your ticket, please do so. If you're having trouble getting a ticket or having trouble getting it approved, send me a DM. I'll see if I can help you get there. I'd love to see more digital folk there. And like I've said before, if you see me in real life at a conference, come up and say hello. And don't forget, as a Sport Next attendee, you can claim that half price Pick My Brain session. So another reason to get signed up and go to Sport Next. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Do you get Sports Geek news? Sean Callanan analyzes the latest sports business articles for you weekly. Sign up at sportsgeekhq.com. Want to help drive more revenue from your digital efforts? Book a time for a call. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.